Well, I think EAG this year, in particular, since it's in Italy, it's great because Wilhelm just launched its Italian platform. So we are just through the first flight of our advertising campaign. And so to be in Italy and enjoy the whole gaming industry, actually looking into mainly a regulated market now, like Italy, is a great thing to be here and to feel the whole spirit of how the industry is moving, actually before it was more pirate and startup spirit to in a more stable and established industry. Italians are passionate about sports. So they really like to watch sports events, they like to bet on sports. Italians also have quite a high affinity for gambling. So that means that the Italian customer as such is actually a perfect customer for an iGaming product. So what we have in addition to that is that Italy is a fairly large country and it's a very strong economy. So you have people who like gambling and they actually have the money to gamble, and there are a lot of them. Beside that, what's important is actually the regulatory environment. When Italy moved into regulating online gaming, which goes essentially back to 2006, they first started only to regulate sports betting with a high limitation on the markets you could offer bets on, and actually with a rather high taxation rate. But since then, this considerably changed, as Italy, on the one hand, was reducing the tax rates on sports betting. They were allowing operators to offer a broader product, so basically people could bet on more markets in Italy. And they introduced, or they allowed in their regulation, additional products like poker or recently casino. So in the end, now in Italy, it's possible to offer the complete product range in a regulated environment at a taxation rate which is not low, but still it's workable. And I think this is the main reason that Italy is actually very successful as a regulated gaming market in Europe. If you asked me which markets could replicate the success of Italy, I think it depends from which angle we are looking at it. If you ask me which markets in Europe theoretically could replicate Italy's success, I would say the market which would have the biggest chance to even surpass the potential of Italy would be Germany. If we look into it from a regulatory perspective, I think that Spain is probably a market which could be similarly interesting for gaming operators as Italy, even though the absolute market size of the Spanish gaming market will be slightly smaller than the Italian market. If we as an operator decide to expand in new markets, we actually look into two main areas. One area is the legal situation. So it means actually, are we allowed to offer our services? And do we think that we will be allowed to do so in the future? So on the one hand, what we need is legal security in order to safeguard the investment we are doing into that market. The other aspect is basically the consumer and the competitive environment and the availability of media. So basically it means, are there enough customers who are interested into our products? Can we reach them with effective advertising communication? And do we think that we are going to have a positive return on investment on our spendings into that market, which are mainly advertising investments? But in regulated markets, also the investments in actually getting regulated, getting a license are considerable. To put it very simple, I think to be really successful in a market, what's important is to be serious about that market. I think if an operator wants to be successful in any market, you need to put the right amount of resources into the market. You need to be local, meaning to have people from that market in the team and involve them into the decision, or actually even let them take the decision for the market. And then one thing which is really important is to be long-term determined to actually succeed in that market. We need to distinguish if we are talking about newly regulated markets or if we are talking about markets which are still open for a .com model. If we talk about regulated markets, certainly the biggest challenges is that the regulatory rules actually require an operator to follow quite a complicated process in order to have a product and an organization in place which is compliant with the regulation. That actually puts quite a lot of challenges on every operator who wants to go into such market. When we look into other markets, or actually we can look at any market, it's also the competitive environment, because now, today, there's almost no market in Europe or actually around the world which you can operate where you don't find quite a dense competitive environment. So if you want to be successful in these markets, you are confronted with quite severe competition, and you actually need to have quite a proper and quite a good marketing strategy in place in order to be able to leverage one's brand and the product into that market.